Body shot. Ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When the adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
UFC 269. We have two titles on the line. One, we can maybe consider in the lightweight division a people's champion versus an actual crown champion. And then in the women's bantamweight division, what can we say? The Lioness, Amanda Nunez, she's looking to make her 9th career title defense in the UFC. Really, at this point, I think we need to start considering if she racks up another couple dominant title defenses, the ladies go. We already say that she is, but she needs to be crowned, etched in stone. You already know how the deal goes, man. UFC 269, stacked card, like I said, man, and it features 18 ranked fighters between the main card and the prelims. I think we could suffice it to say there's going to be a lot of rankings adjustments in the upcoming week, folks. So, good one on our hands, but let me bring in my co-host, the New Mexico native, the Santa Fe bomber, folks. My name is Derick G. I am your host. This is my co-host, as always. It's towards the end of the year, man. We rocking it. We doing it big, AJ. How are you living, my man? Checking in hot on this fine Thursday morning. How you living, brother?
Man, checking in hot, brother. I'm doing well over here, man. I'm excited. You dropped a little hint. There's 18 ranked fighters going forward. This ranking review is about to get crazy this week, man. The shuffle up that's about to happen. We were talking about it a little before as well, man. The amount of bangers on these prelim cards. Yeah. This is one of those ones, we say it all the time, folks. You got to tune in for the prelims, but on this one, you got to make sure you're tuning in, watching, even on the early prelims, bro. This one's about to be fire. I'm excited for this card. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. How you doing, Derick?
I'm living good, my man. I'm living good, but I'm filled with inquiry, intrigue, question right now. And I have a question for you off the bat, brother. My question is this. Since this is the, how would you say? I'm blanking on the name, but you know, when it's one thing before the penultimate, that's what I want. This is the penultimate event for the UFC of the year, right? One event prior to the final finale. But my question is, if you were a UFC schedule maker or whoever's job, you know, it's somebody's job to be like, all right, we're going to set the bouts this way in this order. We started the year on a fight night. We're ending the year on a fight night. But don't you think that this banging ass card probably should have closed out the year? Like, is it interesting to you that we're getting Derek Lewis versus Chris Daukaus, a solid heavyweight fight, but that's going to close out the year as opposed to 2 championship fights? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I was honestly kind of surprised that there's still one fight card after this, man, especially the way that they have it set up. There's bangers going on bangers on this card, and I was like, this is easily the wrap up. Like, this is the last one, the 269 ending on a pay-per-view. Like, it seems very fitting to have the double champs. Like, yeah, it was an interesting play by the UFC to put that. I mean, it makes sense with the heavyweights too. We're gonna get a banger at the end of the card. But I honestly, when I was doing the fight research, I was like, man, this is a hell of a last card of the year. And then I remember, I was like, oh yeah, we got one more. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'll take it. As a fight fan, give me as many fights as possible. I just think that we could have switched it up just a little bit, man. Give me Daukaus Lewis this week, and then next week, right before Christmas. I mean, this is your Christmas gift. You get some championship bangers. You get a whole entire card stacked to the gills, my man. Listen, Bronx, Charles Oliveira, he's looking to defend his title for the first time against Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Like I said, the people's champion versus the unified crowned champion. Now, as for the challenger in the women's bantamweight championship bout, Julianna, the Venezuelan vixen, Julianna Peña. Listen, 2-3 in her last 5. Or 3-2 in her last 5, And those 2 losses are, I believe, the only 2 losses of her career. She got finished in both of those fights. One of them was against Jermaine Durandamy, right? Someone that Amanda Nunez has already put away. Listen, man, we're going to talk about all this good stuff in a second, but I just want to get a very quick glimpse, a 1-sentence or 2-sentence glimpse of what you think Julianna Peña's title chances are against the Lioness, the goated one, Amanda Nunez. What do you think?
I think they're better than a lot of people are giving her, Derick. You know, we say a lot of the time that you got to bully the bully in the fight. Yeah. And Amanda Nunez, she's a GOAT. Like you were saying before, she's been proven to be a dominant force in there. But Julianna Peña is no slouch of her own, and she can get it done. She has some strength behind her. We'll see how far it's going, though.
I'll tell you what, in the grappling, man, she's a force to be reckoned with. Absolutely relentless in the grappling. It's the other aspects of the game that make you a champion, though, and that's what we're going to have to really see. I will just give you a little spoiler, folks. Amanda Nunez, biggest favorite on the card, opens up as a minus 800 favorite. Now, this isn't Shevchenko levels where she's minus 1200 and stuff like that. But listen, man, that's a hell of a favorite right there. So we'll talk about all that good stuff in 1 second, AJ. My man, I just need to ask you, though, really quickly. Sugar Sean O'Malley. Sorry for the stumble on that one, man, because this is that mind-blowing of a thing right here, right? He gets the main card bump once again. Another pay-per-view. He's fighting Raulian Paiva. But that means that we have a OG bona fide legend and another real good fighter on the prelims, man. Dominic Cruz versus Pedro Munoz is a prelim fight. And I just wanted to ask you, are you reading into this? This is something I was kind of reading into, and I was like, that means something. Sugar Show, he already talked about it. He's like, I'm the star. That's why they put me on the pay-per-views, because I sell. But would you read into this definitively, or do you think this is just business moves?
I think well, I mean, I've been reading into it a little bit because there's definitely some motion that they're trying to get going forward. They you always lead with your best foot forward. The guy who's going to provide you the most money and people that want to see the most, you obviously put them where the price is up, where the price is high on that pay-per-view. I think it's just setting up the future of the division going forward. Kind of Uncle Dane is saying, hey, we know where we're going. And it's almost a little kick in the butt for Pedro Munoz and Dominic Cruz, saying like, "Hey guys, we know you're vets in the game, but you can't just rest on your laurels. You need to show something to get put up there." If I was in their position, Dominic Cruz and Pedro Munoz, I'd be a little heated, man. You're gonna put the young guns above me. I'm ranked. I'd be a little upset. I guess it proves what Uncle Chael is saying, that rankings really don't matter.
I mean, what do you say all the time, right? The saying that Uncle Chael says is it's you want to be able to fight like the best fight placement on the card. How does that saying go?
You want to be the highest on the card, fighting the easiest person for the most money.
There you go, right? I mean, listen, career-wise, that's not bad advice. I'm just saying. So the Sugar Show, he's got it working right now. But I will say, yes, this should definitely light a fire under the tails of Dominic Cruz and Pedro Munoz. It's literally the same weight class, and they're ranked higher, but they're not even a featured prelim. They're on the fight before the featured prelim. So that's why I'm just like, interesting, man. I know Dominic Cruz isn't the biggest, he's not an ass kisser, for Dana White. So I think that's kind of part of it too. Maybe not. Either way, AJ, there's 3 fighters that have huge opportunities this weekend at UFC 269 to earn a number next to their name. That would be Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley, right? Fighting number 15 ranked Raulian Paiva. That's Tai Tuivasa. Bam Bam gets a shot against Augusto Sakai, ranked at number 11. And Aaron Blanchfield, who is actually taking a short notice opponent in number 13th ranked Miranda Maverick. Really quickly, let's jump before we jump into this stuff, let's do a little poster review. So I'm going to take a step back. I just wanted to put that out there. We'll return to that in just 1 second. All right, AJ, updated poster here for UFC 269. There was supposed to be Leon Edwards versus Masvidal. We got robbed of that fight this week because Masvidal got some type of injury. I think he had a rib injury or something like that. So it was actually legitimate, But nonetheless, it leaves us with 2 title fights and an interesting poster. We got the gold. We got the blue contrast. The font's nice. You got the portraits. Dustin Poirier look a little confused right there. You're just like, what I'm saying? For those who are just listening, he's got a very kind of confused, stoic face. Charles Oliveira doesn't look very menacing. Nunez looks a little too smirking, too nice. And then Pena is the only one who got like kind of a game face on right here. 1 to 10, my man. This is one of the last posters of the year. Are they closing out strong? What are you thinking about this one? What's your score on that one?
I think they're closing out right middle of the ground, brother. I'm giving this one a 5. It's very classic. And to that point, I do like I like the classic look of it. They're switching up kind of the contrasting vibes of the blue and the yellow, mixing it up with the names and stuff. I could see compositionally where it works, but I still think, it's played out. I'm going 5, man. What about you?
Listen, I don't think you have to be a master graphic designer to look at this poster and say, I think we could have did just a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? So 5 is a little harsh, and I'm not going to lie. This one is probably better than the last poster, the Aldo versus Font, which I gave a 7. So I'm going to have to say, or this one isn't as good maybe as that last one. I'm going to go 6. How about that? Long story short, I'm going to go 6. It just doesn't stand out to me, doesn't pop off the page. For championship bouts, I'm like, okay, cool. I think the UFC 266 poster, the one that had the Vegas in the back and it had, that was the Volkanovski versus Ortega. Like, that was such a banging poster. How do you not just at least try to mimic in a way that type of style? This is in Vegas too. This is at the T-Mobile Arena. I don't know what's going on here. Either way, folks, we're not here to break down graphic design, you know, all that good stuff, man. We're here to break down some fights, and that's what we're going to do. So, folks, before we move on, drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Currently, as of this morning, we're at 317 subscribers on the good old YouTube, man. We love you. We appreciate you. It's closing towards the end of the year. I believe, AJ, when we started this year, this is a channel that I had kind of converted over from another endeavor of mine. I had like 40 subscribers. Now together we have 317 goddamn subscribers, man. You guys are the best, as always. So keep hitting the subscribe button, keep liking, and keep sharing it with your friends, your fight fans. You know, this is the fight companion that you need. You know, when you're over here and you're in a similar situation as many of us have been in our lives, AJ, where we don't got no one to talk fights with. You can talk fights with us, folks. Hit us up in the comment section, all the good stuff. We're always replying. We actually got a couple comments from the Action Man himself last week, man. First off, he told us we needed to eat our words. You know, he was all like, so about me being in over my head, eat your words. And we did. And he replied with a very subtle, thank you, man. And you know what, man? You're welcome. Thank you for holding us accountable. That's what we need here on this program. But that's what we're talking about. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's eating crow or validating our points, we in here to rock. You know what time it is, AJ. Last words before we move on that one, my man.
Man, I love that. And one of the biggest things is staying accountable for what we said and proving us wrong. Man, let us know what you're feeling. Let us know what is going on in the comments. We're no ego over here, man. I'm wrong all the time. So I got no problem saying it, but also we're right all the time. Look at those records down there. A little bit better than 50%. You know, we rocking right, and we'll keep it honest. We'll keep it going, man. And I love it. Yeah, thanks so much, commenters, subscribers, all of it, man. Let's go.
That's right. So let's rock, brother. Let's get into some sleepers. You know what time it is, my man.
It's time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're gonna sleep on me and I'm gonna wake you up.
AJ, there's a hell of a lot of sleepers on this card, man. We already talked about it earlier, but I want to kind of go in depth, and I want to hit on a few of these ones, my man, just because I feel like we'd be in the wrong not to touch on these prelims and these sleepers. So, folks, early prelims, they start at 2:30 Pacific time here. So wherever your time zone is, 2:30 PT, that's where we're starting early prelims. And to kick us off, we have a women's strawweight bout between Jillian Robertson and Priscilla Cachoeira. That's going to be a fun one, AJ. This is very low-key, very under the radar. I don't even want to talk too in-depth about it. I just want to say, for the Savage, for Jillian Robertson, man, she's had kind of an up-and-down career. Losses where a lot of people thought she would get some wins in. Cachoeira, she's a good fighter, grappler, all the good stuff. Robertson, she's a great grappler. 2.5 rounds is the over-under on this one. But Robertson opens up as a minus 380 favorite, and I think that might be a little risky against Cachoeira, just because Robertson, like I said, hasn't been the most consistent. Do you see anything in this fight? What is your trajectory, whatever you want to call it, for Jillian Robertson in her career thus far, man? You know, I think she just needs to get it together mentally a little bit, but she's a good fighter. What do you think?
Yeah, very good fighter, and started off very strong in her career. I saw back in the day, man, Jillian Robertson, very good things for her going forward. But coming up lately, she's kind of dropped a couple, not the best performances as of late. Her as the, what'd you say, plus 320 underdog?
No, she's a minus 380 favorite.
Minus 380 favorite. Kind of surprising to me, man, because I was leaning a little bit more towards Cachoeira on this one. I think that's a live dog in Priscilla, and it's going to be a fun fight. I'm actually taking the under on this one. I think they're always leading off those cards with something kind of a banger proceed. So you said 2.5 is the over. I'm taking the under on that one, man. I think it's going to be a crazy fight.
Interesting. Yeah, it's going to be a fun one to kick off the card, man. So I think it was very strategic bout placement this time around. But obviously, folks, we're not going to touch on our featured prelims. Yeah, these are just hitting kind of the ones around, the ones that we really think stand out on the card. So another one, man. This one, AJ, dude, I'm excited for it, but at the same time, I'm not, because I know who I'm leaning with, and it breaks my heart. This is a fight between the Wizard, Ryan Hall, and Derick Minner, fighting out of Glory MMA. So we saw what happened to Ryan Hall in his last fight against Ilia Topuria, who is an outstanding young prospect. He's basically contender right here at this point. But what bummed me out, man, is that Ryan Hall, in his very eccentric jiu-jitsu style, didn't work out against a dude who said, like, jiu-jitsu my ass, I'm just going to smash your face because this is MMA. I'm going to get on top of you. I'm going to use the half guard. I'm going to wrestle you, and I'm going to ground and pound for the finish. And Ryan Hall has had a lot of success doing all his eccentric movements and all that good stuff that you love to see, all the Imanari rolls and all that. But like I said, man, after a while, people start figuring out your game plan and seeing how they can, it's like chess, man. They have a move to counter what you're good at. So he got countered by Poirier in his last fight. Darrick Minner has all of the skills, the tools, all of the stuff in his bag to kind of repeat that performance that Ilia Poirier did to Ryan Hall. My question to you is, do you think Ryan Hall is going to have a bounce back fight this time around? Darrick Minner is going to be there or James Krause is going to be in the corner of Darrick Minner fighting out of Glory MMA, right? And Ryan Hall still opens up as a minus 220 favorite. So what do you think about that matchup?
Interesting that he's a 220 favorite. I think it's just because Darrick Minner isn't quite the well-known name that he should be, man. This dude is 26-12, all the experience in the world, the skill set in order to be able to counter Ryan Hall. It's just interesting to me that we have specialists like Khabib, who just did kind of one thing the best he could. There's names and names could go on about who those people have just done one aspect of the fight game that was really, really good at. And Ryan Hall, he's amazing at the submission game, but just not really catching that kind of steam that we've seen go forward. Interesting to see. We'll see if Darrick Minner can actually stop Ryan Hall's jiu-jitsu ground game and then put him into some deep waters. I'm leaning a little bit towards Minner on this one. I think that's another live dog right there, man. Put some money on down right there.
Yeah, brother. I'm leaning towards Minner too. And like I said, it breaks my heart. But I feel like this could go one of two ways, right? It could be either Ryan Hall just snatches up a heel hook real fast and just, gets him out of there like quick like that. Or it could be Darrick Minner doing what Ilia Poirier did. I feel like there's kind of no in between, which is not really the way you should look at the fight game. But in this one, it's just hard for me to see just a kickboxing matchup between these two. Because Ryan Hall has great kickboxing. Don't get me wrong. People underestimate him and they think he just only knows how to do submissions, dude. This dude has very, very advanced techniques on the feet too. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, this one is going, 2.5 rounds on this one. I think I'm going to go on the under, man. I think someone's getting finished in that one. So we'll see what happens. Both leaning towards Darrick Minner. If so, that'd be a big bump up. Ryan Hall, he's about number 30 in the world right now. Darrick Minner is about like 40, 43. So that'd be a big bump. Another one. These are all just early prelims that I'm talking about. This isn't even prelim yet. Alex Perez versus Matt Schnell. These are two ranked fighters, top 10 fighters in the men's flyweight division. Lest we forget, Alex Perez just challenged for a title against Davison Figueiredo. Got choked out, put to sleep. I don't know if he got put to sleep or he tapped, but he got choked out. Now he's fighting dangerous Matt Schnell. The dude, you know what I'm saying? Got the very eccentric stand-up style. Should be a fun one, man. We can kind of skip past this one a little bit, but my question to you is, do you think Alex Perez with a big win kind of stays in that title mix right there? Because the flyweight division is a little shallow.
It's a little shallow. It's a little up and down, really seeing where everyone's going to go. The top 2 or 3 are kind of staying stagnant. I guess not stagnant's the best word, but staying steady. But if Alex Perez gets a performance win over Matt Schnell and a good solidified one, I see him staying up in that upper echelon of the division for sure.
Absolutely. And it feels like Matt Schnell, even though he's very young, the dude came up from the Ultimate Fighter and all that, he doesn't feel like a gatekeeper, but it feels like he's kind of approaching that territory, if you know what I mean by that. So interesting matchup, my man. AJ, featured prelim for the early prelim, if you want to call it that. You can't really call it that. But listen, dude, Andre Muniz, number 15th, fighting against Eric Anders at middleweight. So we know Eric Anders has been going up and down between 205 and 185. But this is a scary matchup, AJ. And the reason why this is a scary matchup to me is because Andre Muniz has been snatching limbs. He's submitting people. He's got great stand-up. But Eric Anders is a dude who I think has been constantly improving. He looks like he's in the best shape of his life. He's fighting out of Fight Ready right now. So that's that Henry Cejudo camp right there where it's turning into a super camp. You got John Jones training over there now. But what's interesting to me is that Eric Anders, former Alabama football player, right? No longer a football player. He's a true bona fide mixed martial artist. He's gone toe-to-toe with some of the best of them. He's gone 3 whole ass-whooping rounds against Thiago Santos and never gave up, never quit on himself. This dude has a really, really good top game, really good control. This dude will push you against the cage and drop bombs on you. Still a little more to be desired in terms of his technical capacities or capabilities, but I think that he has a real shot at winning this fight a lot more than the odds makers or anybody else thinks, because currently he opens up as a plus 120 underdog against Muniz, who is young, but though he is young, he's very skilled and a very dangerous fighter. What do you think about this matchup?
Very skilled and very dangerous is Muniz, but honestly, Dan, I'm leaning And this one's actually one of the ones where I'm a little bit up and down on this one, but I'm leaning a little bit more towards Anders. And why I like him the most in this fight is he's still improving. He still has that little bit of unknown. Like you said, there's still a little bit of desire to be with his technical abilities, but the fact that he's able to continuously grow fight after fight after fight, and then now training at Fight Ready over there. I believe they're out of Arizona. I could be wrong about that one, but either way, man, this dude, the surprise aspect that can come in from a fight where you think you know everything this guy has to throw, and then he throws up something different. That's why I like Eric Anders in this fight, man. It's going to be a banger. This one, I think you could call it one of the featured
Prelim.
feature fight of the early prelim. Yeah, this one's gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And then we're basically hitting every damn fight, but let me just give a quick couple sentences on Miranda Maverick stepping in on short notice against Erin Blanchfield. Miranda Maverick, who I believe we can all agree got robbed in her last fight against Macy Barber. Listen, man, she won 2 of those 3 rounds. I don't care what nobody says, but I guess the judges don't agree, and I guess those are the ones who their opinion are the only ones that really matter when it comes to deciding a fight truly. Big opportunity for Erin Blanchfield, but I think that Miranda Maverick is coming for vengeance. I think that she is going to right the wrongs that were her last fight. Does this fight really do anything for her, though, if she gets a big win?
Not really. I mean, it's rough to say not really because just Erin Blanchfield doesn't really have that name, that weight behind her yet. What it does do is solidify her as one of the top killers in the division, man. There's a lot of up and down that happens in the women's rankings where, you know, you kind of fall off. A lot of fighters are around that 500 mark. And if Miranda Maverick can stay winning, you know, get to 10-3 instead of that 9-4, I think it just solidifies her just one notch above.
Well, let me ask you this, just real quick. Is this a lose-lose situation for Miranda Maverick? Basically she putting all her chips on the table and saying, like, we're risking it to get the biscuit because I need a win. I want to stay active. But then again, if I lose, I mean, that kind of resets your whole entire momentum, trajectory, everything, because she came in with the big win over Liana Jojua, who is no longer in the UFC. She got cut. Racked up another win. You know, she's doing her thing, all that good stuff. But she needs to keep racking them up if she wants to eventually become a title contender or contender in general. So is this a lose-lose for Miranda Maverick?
It feels like it, doesn't it? If she loses this fight or even if she wins, but doesn't get a spectacular performance, it's kind of one of those ones. It's like, yeah, okay, you were supposed to win this one. Kind of how I forget the fighters we were talking about it a couple weeks ago, where you're supposed to get that dominant win and you didn't, and it's not as impressive. Sure, you pulled it out, but you could have done better. You should have done better. Kind of a lose-lose situation for Miranda Maverick, except for the fact that she's going to get some extra dollar signs.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about Felicia Spencer, and that was the fight that she won against Leah Letson before announcing her retirement. And she did it in dominant fashion, but it still wasn't the excitement that we needed, especially to top off her career, you know. But if it worked for her, it worked for her. Happy retirement. Shout out to you, Felicia Spencer. AJ, man, Augusto Sakai versus Tai Tuivasa, banger in the heavyweight division. I'm going to set the table for this, and I want you to give me a quick, response, and then we'll move on. Tai Tuivasa, this is the biggest fight of his career, in my opinion. I actually got into a couple Twitter exchanges talking about this matchup where the note was, for Tai Tuivasa, this is kind of his second run, if you would call it, in terms of momentum and trying to become a contender in the heavyweight division. Augusto Sakai is a very technical fighter, and Bam Bam's probably going to need to avoid a firefight and show off some of his technical prowess if he wants to get the job done. But then again, I do kind of believe all the pressure is on Bam Bam in this one, because Sakai feels like a dude who's kind of being written off. You know, Tuivasa's hitting shoeies, doing all the good stuff. He's popular. He's an entertainer. But Sakai is just kind of creeping in the shadows. You know what I'm saying? Just doing his thing, saying like, all right, man, you want to come take my number? Come and get it, homie. But I feel like for Tuivasa, the moment is much bigger. People know how good Sakai is. Even though he's coming off a loss against Rosenstruck, people know how good Sakai is. Would you agree that Bam Bam is kind of in a hot seat on this one, and this is a make-or-break fight for him? Because if he wins, you are a ranked fighter. You're getting big names after this one. If you lose, you stay just that entertainer dude who has to fight the Greg Hardys of the world in the UFC. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from 100%. It feels like Bam Bam if he wins this fight, he's trying to get to the actual stars of the show instead of just a performer. I honestly think though Augusto Sakai has a little bit more to risk on this one. To me, it feels like the guy who's been on that losing streak kind of fell off, because Augusto Sakai, you know, let's not forget that I'd say 2-3 months ago, we were talking about him getting to the championship within a couple fights. Now he's taken a lot of losses, or not a lot, but a couple losses, and dropped his momentum. And I feel like it's at that point where you really need to kind of light that fire. He's at the tipping point of his career where, like we talked about before with Uncle Chael, he's no longer on that main card fight. He's going to be dropping more and more. Eventually, that ban hammer is going to be coming around. I feel like Azusa Sakai has a little bit more to lose for this, even if it's not as much of a hot seat as Tai Tuivasa. Because I agree, Tai Tuivasa is in the hot seat where this is his second coming. This is his second chance to actually be that fighter that he knows he can be instead of just the performer. I think this is a hot seat kind of all around for both these guys. I'd put a little more pressure on Sakai, though, to be completely honest with you, Derick.
That's interesting. I mean, I love both perspectives of it, just because it can be equal that way. And I think the odds makers see it that way because this is a minus 110 pick 'em a pop, So basically roll the dice, flip a coin, whatever you want to call it, man. Somebody is going to win, and it might be decided simply by whoever lands first hardest, simple as that. But excuse me, folks, that is a banger in the heavyweight division for the actual prelims. And then, I guess let's just cap it off because we already kind of talked Pedro Munoz, Dominic, Cruz, bout placement. We already know that's going to be a fun one. Big implications in the bantamweight division. But for our featured prelim, 18 months removed from his last fight, man, Josh Emmett is ready to get into a car wreck against Dan 50K Ige, man. This should be a really fun one because Ige is coming off of a loss, right? I think that Josh Emmett has a lot on his hands to deal with, especially because, 18 months is a long time when you're a little bit of an older fighter. Nonetheless, he opens as a minus 170 favorite against Dan Ige. That look of surprise kind of was the same thing that I had. 18 months removed from your last fight, and you're still a betting favorite. What do you think about this matchup?
Especially against, I always want to call him 75K Ige from now on, right. Man. This dude with the big paycheck last time. Yeah, man, against Dan Ige, that's a hard one because he's been staying fresh. He's been staying mobile. Josh Emmett has left us with a little bit more to desire in these last 18 months. And a lot of people, they've been very new to the sport, don't even know who Josh Emmett is, so it's which is a crazy thing to say, you think of the legend, like a lot of legends in there. Josh Emmett is one of them in the featherweight division, but man, this one's going to be a banger. I'm honestly leaning a little bit more to the guy who's been putting in more effort. I'm going with Dan Ige on this one, but don't get me wrong, Josh Emmett is out there. They have him as the favorite, kind of blowing my mind, to be completely honest with you, Derick.
Yeah, man, plus 145 comeback for Dan Ige, but I agree with you. I think that for Josh Emmett, it's not like he hasn't been consistent. It's like he hasn't had the opportunity to be consistent. Just injuries, man. It's what happens. It's the fight game. So should be a fun fight. 2.5 rounds with the over and under. But I think it's now time. Let's hit the featured prelims, AJ, and let's jump straight into yours, my man. You have a banger in the bantamweight division. I'm talking about a banger, and that is the Zohan, Randy Costa. He's coming in at number 55 in the world right now at bantamweight versus Tony Kelley, which is it's going to be a fun matchup. This is going to be a good clash of styles, but Tony Kelley is ranked 123 in the world, man. So a little bit of discrepancy in terms of placement, but then again, for Tony Kelley, that just means you have a lot of opportunity. His last fight was against a man, Ali
Al-Qaizi.
So, yeah, something like that, man. The bald dude, he fights in UAE. I think he's the UAE champion now after he got cut from the UFC. Dude was a savage, man. Tony Kelley, he was caught in a deep guillotine, man. He had that dude, Al. He had him in a nasty armbar in the last fight, man. But it went pretty deep, man. This is going to be a fun matchup. Randy Costa coming off of a KO loss to Adrian Yanez. We know that. But the man is 6-2, live by the sword, die by the sword. Knockouts are incoming. What do you think about this sleeper, AJ? Like, what stood out to you? What made you pop off the page on this one and say, okay, this needs to be featured? What do you think?
Well, Derick, there's we've already talked about it. There's so many fighters that we've covered already in these prelims that we've already given a lot of shine to. A lot of those fighters, if you've been paying attention to all the episodes, a lot of them have already been our sleepers going before, man. So they've just been grinding, going hard. And what brought the attention to me in this fight, Derick, this one's going to be a scrap, bro. Randy Costa is an absolute flashy striker. This dude's a killer out there. He has some serious pop on his shots. And you want to talk about head kicks. You want to talk about volume. You want to talk a little bit of smack talk too. Costa is here to deliver on all of those. He is a little bit awkward of a style. He has a little bit like karate, kickboxing. He mixes it all in kind of together, but very efficient in the way he gets it done. Watch out for his kicks. This dude is very, very dangerous. And Tony Kelley, what I like most about him, he's calm and confident. He's not really much of a bouncy, flashy on the feet kind of guy. He'll stay plodding. He'll stay walking you down. Really calm, but very efficient in the way he goes about it. Precise striking, dangerous on the ground. Kelley's well-rounded in his very short professional career. This one's going to be insane, man. This is a sleeper to me, Derick, because both of these guys have fight-ending potential in the 135 class. This is one of those ones you can't blink. I know Kai Kara France, that's his nickname, but I'm putting the don't blink category on this one as well because it's going to be a fast fight. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And these are two up-and-comers who are going to see, just like the rest of the sleepers that have now been featured on this card as well, getting a little promotion. They're going to be up in the highlights coming soon, man. What are you thinking about this fight, Derick?
I think this is a fucking banger, brother. That's what I think straight off the bat. When I was watching just tape on both of these dudes, I'm like, man, it's going to be such an interesting clash of styles because Tony Kelley isn't going to be a stationary target for Randy Costa to hit, right? That's sometimes what he needs. He needs to walk you down and just spam those kicks on you, you know, throwing a right cross and then a right roundhouse kick, whatever the case may be. But I think for Tony Kelley, he's multidimensional. He's going to look to take the fight to the ground, get it on the feet, sprawls, scrambles, the whole entire nines, maybe some submission attempts. I mean, why not try to attack that against Randy Costa, a dude who's got ultimate striking? So the interesting thing to me on this one is that Costa opens up as a minus 195 favorite, which I can totally see why he is the favorite. But at the same time, I think that the multidimensionality of Tony Primetime Kelley should make this a little more interesting. So let me ask you really quickly, man, before we move on to my sleeper. Do you think that Randy Costa is a rightful favorite in this sleeper matchup?
I do. I have him as the favorite as well. I'm leaning a little bit more towards Costa as well, but I honestly think it's just because of the way he goes about fighting. Super flashy, super entertaining, kind of fan-friendly. Don't sleep on Tony Kelley, though, because that's a very live dog right there. And I like what you said about the multidimensionality of the way he fights, because you're right. He's a lot more calm and confident, like I was saying. He'll be there to look like he's going to get hit. And then once those shots start flying, then he can take it to the ground and get things going. So there's very much a dog in this fight to be had. But I think the Randy Costa is a favorite. It's probably correct.
Right on, man. So I just say that just because, listen, man, it's a tough fighter fighting out of Team Alpha Male. Don't underestimate these cats, man. I'm telling you. You got great leadership over there. Uriah Faber, leading the ship. You know what time it is. So for my sleeper, folks, and AJ, I know you was just talking about we've already highlighted some of these fighters. Well, I'm doing it again. I'm highlighting these dudes again because that's how good of a matchup. These two have been individual sleepers for me in the past. Now they meet up. Clash of styles. Going to be a fun one. We got number 58 in the middleweight division, Jordan the Beverly Hills Ninja Wright, man. And he is, he's got a tough test on his hands against number 26 in the middleweight division and Bruno Silva. So Bruno Silva is a dude who has kind of stormed onto the scene. Listen, he's only 2-0 in the UFC, but they both had brutal knockouts going thus far. And for Jordan Wright, 2-1 in the UFC, he did get stopped by what's the dude? Nunez, AJ. What's my man? Joaquin Buckley. Sorry about that, folks. So he did get stopped by Joaquin Buckley, but he came back with a vengeance in his last fight. In those 12 victories, 7 of them via knockout, 5 of them via submission, 100% finish rate. Talk about that for a sleeper right there. And he's fighting a dude in Bruno Silva who's got 21 wins, 18 by knockout. So you got two dudes who are giants in the middleweight division. Both are over 6 feet. Both of them have interesting striking styles, but Bruno Silva is that BJJ black belt that can mix it up on the ground. For Jordan Wright, doesn't necessarily want to take it to the ground unless he's smashing your face in. So I think that this is going to be more or less of a kickboxing match. Not because Bruno Silva doesn't have the ground chops. Like I said, he's very talented on the ground. But I think his ego and his pride is going to say, all right, pal, let's get into it. Let's kickbox a little bit. I think it's going to be fun. AJ, I want to ask you just off the top right here, my man. Both of these dudes are over 30 years old, over 6 feet. Both got decent reaches, 74 inches for Silva, 77 for Jordan Wright. Awesome kicks by both fighters, awesome punches by both fighters. Do you see this fight getting out of the first round?
No, man, not at all. I don't see this fight getting out of the first round, and I also don't see it hitting the ground. I think we're going to be in store for some fireworks, man, especially with these two kind of flashy strikers who like to get it done in a fun way and entertain the crowd. Both are very, very exciting, man. Yeah, this one's another don't blink category going forward, man.
Absolutely. And if it does somehow, some way go all 3 rounds, we know Bruno Silva carries his power all 3 rounds. I mean, he just finished Andrew Sanchez in his last fight. After Andrew Sanchez wrestled him for 2 rounds, man, he says, all right, and he kicked him in the nuts like 3 times. So Bruno Silva was like, all right, brother, listen, I've had enough of your nonsense. I'm just going to knock you out now. For Jordan Wright, I do think the man has a very much a chip on his shoulder, a massive chip on his shoulder. And he's very unassuming, my man. You look at him, you don't think he's a killer. This dude is the definition of killer. He's one of my favorite prospects in the middleweight division. And he's fighting out of Jackson Wink MMA, man. So fighting out the great state of New Mexico. I just think that with the camp, with everything going on, he has a very good shot to win this fight. but I understand the hype on Bruno Silva because the man is opening up as a minus 360 favorite, plus 280 comeback for Jordan Wright. Do you think the line is too skewed in favor of Silva on this one? I think this should be a little bit of a closer fight. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be a little bit closer of a fight. It might just be coming from off of how well Bruno Silva's been doing. But I mean, Jordan Wright isn't a killer as well, man. I think it should be a little bit closer on that one. This is another one of those where it's a toss up for me. I don't know which one I'm leaning way at the exact moment. Maybe a little bit more towards Wright, but even then, Silva has amazing ground game, so It's hard to say, man.
Yeah, it's hard to say, so we'll see. Tune in, folks. That is your featured sleepers for UFC 269. Should be some fun stuff. Once again, before we move on, drop a like, subscribe, bloodywaterpodcast.com. Hit us up on Instagram at bloodywaterpodcast and on Twitter at bloodywaterpod. Always, answering the questions, all the good stuff, man. If you need to find us, on Instagram, individually at D496 for me and AJ, you got the new handle. Tell the people your handle.
Man, the MMA AJ, man. Easy. Or the MMA J, however you say it. Either way, MMA with a little J at the end.
That's
I got you.
It's almost like a double entendre right there. You feel me? But come on, man. All that stuff is going to be in the show description. So wherever you get your podcast at. And folks, actually, real quick, AJ, I just wanted to put this out there. Folks, if you're interested, if you're a tech-savvy person and you're interested in the future of podcasts and interested in the future of supporting creators, download the app called Fountain. And I know I'm giving free pub right now, but download the podcast app called Fountain. You could then find us, the Bloody Water Podcast, on that. It's just like any other podcast app, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, whatever. It's just like anything else. The only difference is once you have to sign up and make an account and all that. And once you sign up and do all of that good stuff, you can then choose to support your favorite podcast, and you could support us in the method of cryptocurrency, man. Satoshi's over here, man. So like I said, this is the Lightning 2.0 network or whatever the case may be. Get up on game, folks. I'm just saying this is the future. So if you are interested, download Fountain and then show us some love in terms of some Satoshis, some Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. I'm still figuring it out myself, but I just wanted to put that out there. All right, AJ, this is a main card, brother.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
All right, my man, you want to talk about a bout to kick off the main card? Well, this is the one right here. Now, I have a little bit of a qualm, a little bit of an issue with this matchup. And the only issue that I have is with some people's perception of this. I've heard people say that if Sean O'Malley beats Raulian Paiva, then they can truly believe that he is going to be a contender for a championship in the bantamweight division. I don't necessarily understand how that logic correlates, how Paiva is a gatekeeper to becoming a champion in the bantamweight division when the man has had, one bantamweight fight? This dude's a flyweight who moved up to bantamweight. So it's like, okay, I get you. And when you look at who Paiva has fought in his last five, the big win over Kyler Phillips was a very gritty, gutsy come back from, adversity win, very similar to our man Clay Guida. But aside from that, man, a win over Zhalgas Zhumagulov, big, tough guy, you know what I mean? A win over Mark De La Rosa, a loss against Rogerio Bontorin, and a loss against Kai Kara France. So what exactly makes this dude the gatekeeper to the championship? I don't really know. I do think this is the biggest on-paper test of Sean O'Malley's career thus far, kind of. So what do you think about this matchup, my man? What do you think about Raulian Paiva? What does he bring to the table that can, thwart the hopes of Sean O'Malley? Because right now he's, quote unquote, the unranked champion. You know what I'm saying? He's 14-1, really, in his mind. He's 15-0 probably. But either way, what do you think about this matchup? What do you think about Paiva?
Very interesting matchup going forward, and definitely the hardest matchup Sean O'Malley has had to face, at least on paper anyway. I think a lot of people are putting this one as like you said, that gatekeeper status on Raulian Paiva, because I feel like it's about time Sean O'Malley really starts getting some steam. I think that's the only reason people are really putting that kind of pressure on this situation. It's more so that Sean O'Malley has been a star since he entered on the Dana White Contender Series, and now it's about time he finally starts heading up there. I don't know if it's necessarily the fact that Raulian Paiva is so good in the bantamweight division, but more so that it's just about time. And don't get me wrong, man, Raulian Paiva is an amazing dude. Like an amazing fighter, crazy powerful, likes to blitz in, awesome technique on the counter striking, a hell of a heart and a hell of a chin. No matter what you do in this guy's fight, if you do not put him out, he will be there till round 3, just swinging and banging, watching you down, blitzing, crazy power. And even the fact that he's went up to the bantamweight from the flyweight division, and the fact that he's able to carry that power still around, very interesting to see. I'm worried a little bit though for his defensive strategy. I was noticing a lot in the Kyler Phillips when he was getting tagged, that those lead hands were low. He was blitzing and leaving himself open. If he does that in a striker like Sean O'Malley, who's not gonna just consistently try to get in the wrestling fight or bounce out, this dude's gonna put you to sleep. It's gonna be an interesting one. But what I like most about Raulian Paiva is he's willing to take one to give one, and when he gives you that shot back, it hurts a lot more than the one he just took. And he's mentally strong and willing to have that dog in that fight, where you can't really teach that. It's just bred in him. It's normal for him. What do you think?
Well, I think that Paiva is an interesting fighter, and I think the biggest thing in his game that makes this matchup interesting is his underrated grappling, man. He has really good grappling, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's just clinching you up, taking your back, dragging you to the ground, trying to just work some submissions. Very patient in his jiu-jitsu, very patient in his grappling overall. But I saw the same holes that you're talking about on the feet, man. You know, a lot of hands down, a lot of eating shots on the chin, you know, and just walking through them, which is like totally cool. Don't get me wrong. But it's like, how long can you do that before the lights get put out? He did get 10-8'd in his fight against Kyler Phillips. And this was literally one of those situations, in my opinion, where Phillips punched himself out. You know what I mean? In that first round, Paiva got saved by the bell in that situation, right? He was out. He was 10-8'd. He was getting his ass whooped. The bell rang. He couldn't even sit down on the stool. He just sat down on the cage, and the corner had to attend to him. Very valiant round 2 and round 3, of course. But I think the grappling was a big part on what gassed out Kyler Phillips as well. Paiva has the cardio to strike and grapple. Does Sean O'Malley have that? Now, I have to look at a fight. I had to look at a fight in preparation for this matchup that Sean O'Malley had a grapple in. And the last fight that he really had a grapple in, it wasn't even really the Thomas Almeida fight. It was the Andre Sukumtoth fight. And that was the fight, if you remember, Sean O'Malley hurt his leg, and he had to win on one leg on that fight because Sukumtoth had a terrible game plan. And after O'Malley's leg was hurt, he decided to still wrestle him and say that was the game plan. So my question to you, AJ, is do you think that Sean O'Malley's grappling or lack of grappling will be exposed? Because I actually think Sean O'Malley has way better grappling than people give him credit for, and I think that he's going to put that on display against Paiva if it comes down to it. What do you think?
I think if it comes down to it, he definitely has the chops to get it done. I feel like if you're a big fan of Sean O'Malley and you're watching all the fights, you know he's a striker. You know he's going to stay there. You know he's going to be patient, sniper, take those shots that he can that hurt you. But when all that is happening, you're not necessarily paying attention how good this dude is on the ground. Mm-hmm. You know they've been working the ground game. It's one of his biggest quote-unquote holes in his game. But this dude, that hole is pretty filled up. Yeah. I do think Raulian Paiva might have a little bit better of an advantage, but only because he's been doing it for a lot longer on the ground anyway. It's going to be interesting to see, man. I mean, it's hard to say that Sean O'Malley's good on the ground because he just doesn't really fight there that much. Even though when he did, he was down one leg and still did very, very well and survived the rest of that fight. It's going to be cool to watch how Raulian Paiva actually takes to this fight if he goes. Because if he does it like he did in the last fight against Kyler Phillips, where he stays in the pocket swinging, Sean O'Malley's not going to gas himself out. Mm-mm. He's going to stay there picking his shots and making it like he did against
Chris Moutinho.
Moutinho. Yeah. Where he stayed all 3 rounds with the power, man, just picking and choosing where he was going to be going. We might see a little bit the same of this one, but I think Raulian Paiva is going to be smart and take it to the ground if he can.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And for O'Malley, when I was just looking back at it, he's been taken down 5 times in his UFC career, professional UFC career. 4 of them came in the Andre Sukumtoth fight, 1 against Thomas Almeida. He's been taken out once in his last 5 fights, and that was against Almeida. And in that Andre Sukumtoth, if you even look deeply into the actual fight, I think that Sukumtoth had 1 legitimate takedown, but it was kind of a Sean O'Malley like pulling guard while he got taken down, and then all the rest of those takedowns came after his leg was injured. So it's not like people can just like, oh, Sean O'Malley can't wrestle, let me just take him to the ground, you know? Clearly it's been easier said than done. But then again, man, listen, I already can hear the comments coming in, people being like, oh, fanboy, Sean O'Malley, da-da-da. This dude is legit. What can you say, man? Chris Moutinho, in that matchup, I think people gave him a lot of praise because he showed heart. But to me, that was a walking punching bag. You just walked forward and got punched in your face a million times. I think the striking differential was like 100+ strikes or something, man. O'Malley was touching. Couldn't miss. 80% accuracy or something crazy in that matchup. If Raulian Paiva walks forward with that same kind of game plan right there and has to close that distance that way, because everything when he does his big counters, everything is kind of wind up, big shot. What I do like is he'll double up on the same side, man. He'll throw right hand, left hand, left hand. You know, I like that. But I think Sean O'Malley as a striker is just too well-rounded, too advanced of a striker, and was going to be able to keep him at distance, because O'Malley does his best work going off the front foot or the back foot. It doesn't matter. And he could just touchy up, front kick, big right hand. It doesn't matter. All right, AJ, that's enough on that right there. Last couple intangibles. O'Malley, as you can see here, is a minus 310 favorite. He is a sizable favorite in this matchup, which I think is interesting. I do actually think it's interesting just because Paiva, I thought he would be a little more respected for the grappling that he can bring, but maybe the odds makers know something that we don't right here. Lastly, this is Paiva's second fight at bantamweight. He's not necessarily a big bantamweight. You know what I'm saying? He's 5'8". Sean O'Malley is 5'11". So something to take into consideration. Who gets the job done? Why? Over and under is 2.5 rounds on this one, my man. So what do you think?
Ooh, I'm taking the under on this one, Derick. And you already know I'm fanboying over here. I'm going with the Sugar Show KO round 1. I think he's gonna get it done. I just the style of striking he has, how slick he is on the feet. He's not gonna gas himself out. And if Kyler Phillips didn't gas himself out in Julian Paiva's last fight, he would have had the win. Just like he had that 10-8 on the first round. The only question that really that plagues my mind is how good is Sean O'Malley on the ground, because Julian Paiva is really, really good. But like I said, man, I'm going Sugar Show KO round 1. What about you, Derick?
So I'm going to rock with the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley in this one, but I'm going by decision. And hear me out on this one. So I'm going over 2.5 rounds. And the reason why is because O'Malley has shown a propensity in his last couple of fights to play with his food. You know, he'll knock you down and then he'll point at you and he'll be like, ha, motherfucker, I knocked you down, you know, instead of just jumping on you and trying to just get you out of there. So I think if he kind of does that, he's an entertainer. That's the name of the game for him. We already know this. And if he continues that methodology of fighting, I think that he's going to let Paiva or he's going to let him loose. You know, he's going to let him, I don't know the phrase, but off the hook. There we go. He's going to let Paiva off the hook, and Paiva is going to, you know, take advantage of that. O'Malley will probably regret it, and Paiva is going to be a tough man to get out of there, unless it's just a one-shot finish, which we've seen O'Malley do. Like, he's knocked out every single one of his opponents in his last wins. The last decision he went to where he won was against Andre Sukumtoth. So I'll just put that out there. So I'm going over, you're going under, but we're both going O'Malley on this one. Right on, my man. Let's move on to the next one. You were talking about a man saying, don't blink. That is the definition of Kai Kara France. His last fight against Rogerio Bontorin was a very interesting one where he had to suffer a lot of adversity, bounce back, and then knock Bontorin's block off, who was a very experienced Muay Thai and boxing practitioner himself. But either way, he opens up as a plus 120 underdog against Cody No Love Garbrandt, coming in at number 7 in the flyweight division, and this is the man's flyweight debut. So I'm just a little concerned on why they have Cody Garbrandt as a minus 140 favorite. Yes, he is a former champion. Yes, the man has fought some of the best to do it. But this is a dude who had kind of a spotty chin at bantamweight, who is now cutting additional weight, going down to flyweight. He says this is where he should have been his entire career anyways. But I still think it's something we can call into question just because we haven't seen it before. Do you think Kai Kara France, who is known for the big right hand, the big power in his hand, you think he can outgun Cody Garbrandt, or do you think it's going to take a different approach to be able to beat No Love, man? There's nobody faster, I think, than Cody Garbrandt. I think even moving down to flyweight, he's still one of the fastest flyweights out there. So what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Cody Garbrandt's one of the fastest ones out there, but doing it at a deprived state of going, you know, cutting that much weight right before, when you're so used to those other ones, it's going to be interesting to see how that chin holds up, especially with somebody who packs absolute shot like Kai Kara France. And to Kara France's praise, in his last fight, you know, he had that slick striking, but he had a backpack put on him for the majority of the time until those last seconds when he was able to get things done. This dude carries so much power for the size he has, and at 5'4", you don't expect this dude to really have pop on his shots, especially with Cody Garbrandt coming in at 5'8". He's going to have that reach advantage. But I don't necessarily see Kara France outpacing Cody Garbrandt going forward. Lately, though, Garbrandt's been fighting a little bit smarter, a little bit more on the back foot, kind of doing a little bit more reads, staying back, letting things kind of happen to him. I don't really see I see a mixture of the old Cody No Love versus the new Cody Garbrandt going forward in this fight, where he's kind of playing a little bit more back and forth, up and down, instead of just waiting and reaching in the pocket like he likes to for his last couple fights. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, you're right. Cody Garbrandt has showed a little more discipline. But then again, we even saw in the Rob Font fight, once you get to a certain point, that just rage, all out, seeing red, that comes out from Cody Garbrandt, man. And that's what kind of concerns me in this fight, because Kai Kara-France can bring a brawl out of anybody. One of the things that Kara-France likes to do is he likes to feint the jab, close distance, and trade in the pocket. Big hooks out the pocket. That right hand, if he can land it, believe it or not, man, and this is gonna sound crazy given the fight style of Cody Garbrandt, I think Kara-France has a power advantage in this fight. I think his right hand is so explosive, a little more explosive than a Cody Garbrandt dropping down in weight with his right hand or whatever you want to get. With left hook, doesn't matter. Kara-France, he drops everybody with that right hand, man. He's had success against Brandon Moreno with it, Tyson Nam with it. Brandon Royval, he clipped him like in the first, 10 seconds of the fight or whatever, right? Obviously, he ended up losing the fight. And then for Bontarine, that's all it took. He just landed that right hand, I think, twice, and both of those shots completely rocked Bontarine. So if he can get that one shot, it's gonna be a tough situation for Garbrandt. But then again, you don't want to bet on somebody predicated off of, if they land that one shot, you know what I mean? Cody Garbrandt could just kind of touch him up, and that's where I do see a real path to victory for Cody Garbrandt just on volume alone. Volume, trying to throw in a couple takedown attempts, you know what I mean? Because we saw he's been a little more willing to work his wrestling, and that's the weak spot for Kai Kara-France. So that's my question to you: do you think Cody Garbrandt says, new division, I need a win here, I'm ranked, if I get a win? He was already supposed to fight for the title at flyweight without ever fighting at flyweight before. So if he wins here, he's probably going to be one of the next up for the titles, even though he's ranked number 7. Do you think he goes safe, Derek Brunson style, I'm just going to wrestle this dude and get the win? What do you think?
I hope so, man. I hope so. I think that's Cody Garbrandt, and that's coming from somebody who likes to see striking. I hope Cody Garbrandt goes for the wrestling approach, man. If we saw what Bontarine was able to do to Kara-France, put an absolute backpack on him. Now you get somebody who's been doing it for years. And Cody Garbrandt, I forget if he's a D1 or an All-American wrestler, but he's been wrestling since he's basically been in Pampers. And if you're able to control that man and then beat him up on the ground and not let Kara-France back up, I think that's Cody Garbrandt's best route for victory, or at least easiest path going forward. Cody Garbrandt, very well-rounded. As long as the fight isn't going too long and he starts to fade, because once Cody Garbrandt starts to fade and those muscles start, taking their toll, then I think Kara-France has a little bit better of a chance. But we got to remember, this isn't a 5-rounder, this is a 3-rounder, so he's going to have the tank going quite all night.
Yeah, we'll have to see, man, because he is more of a bombs away fighter than a touch him up fighter. He is trying to look to land that big shot. But my question, that is a big question mark on this one, how do you think the chin holds up, man? I already kind of mentioned it earlier. He's already had a spotty chin at 135. He showed a good chin against Rob Font, believe it or not, man. He was getting touched up, but he was just fine. But drop it down 10 pounds, man. I mean, the chin, something goes there. Do you think it's going to hold up? Do you think, Kai Kara-France right hand from hell is going to be able to put him out? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a big question mark right there, because not only was the chin a little spotty from the 3 KOs back to back, it held up against Font, but we just saw Font against Aldo not really put Aldo in any little bit of trouble, man. Aldo looked like his chin was even stronger, made of granite. Yeah. So it made me think that Font might not have had the most power going forward. That jab is amazing. We all know that jab is killer, but it made me question Garbrandt's chin a little bit more than it should have, I guess is the best way to put it. Okay. Because Kara-France has crazy pop. So depleting yourself even more than before when you already had a shoddy chin, that's a recipe for disaster. Hopefully it doesn't happen.
And I will just kind of highlight that even though we're saying Kai Kara-France's weak point is the ground, the dude has really, really good scrambles, man. This dude knows how to get back up to his feet. Somehow, some way, eventually he gets back up, you know what I'm saying? So I think even if Cody Garbrandt gets him down, he's going to have to be able to keep him there. And we haven't seen too much of that from Cody Garbrandt recently, you know what I mean? We haven't. So Cody Garbrandt, the other big thing that I want to mention before we give our picks, the man is 1-4 in his last 5 fights, man. Mentally, psychologically, you need a win. You're probably going to be trying to force a win. Being patient might not be in the game plan for this one. And for Kai Kara-France, he's 3-2. His 2 losses have been against Brandon Royval and Brandon Moreno. So not bad fighters to lose to. One is the champion. One is a dude who people thought was going to fast track right up to that championship before that dislocated shoulder. So I'm going to give my pick first on this one, my man. And I'm rolling with Don't Blink. I'm rolling with Kai Kara-France at underdog money plus 120. And I actually see this fight going the over as well, man. The over on this one is 2.5 rounds. I see another decision coming in. I think it's going to be really hard to get Cody Garbrandt out of there unless you just one-shot him. And for Cody Garbrandt, I think Kai Kara-France, I just hope he doesn't underestimate him because I think Kai Kara-France is a legit test in the flyweight division. So who are you rolling with? Why? Over and under? All that.
Yeah, man, I'm rolling with the smarter, the older, no love on this one, man. I'm going Cody Garbrandt, and I'm taking the over as well, Derick. I'm going by decision. I think both of these dudes are going to be hard to get out either way, unless it's a crazy flash KO that nobody saw coming. But I just think the way Cody has been fighting lately is a lot smarter. He still has that bite down dog in him where he's willing to go forward, and if we see some fireworks, it's going to be very entertaining. But I'm going Cody Garbrandt by decision on this one, my man.
All right. And, that's kind of what predicating my pick on is I think Kai Kara-France will be able to draw out that war of Cody Garbrandt. It's like once a warrior, always a warrior, bro. You know what I mean? When it's time to bang, you bang. You know what I'm saying? Come on. You know what time it is. All right, brother. Next matchup right here. Jeff Neal, Hands of Steel at number 12 in the welterweight division is fighting number 14th ranked Santiago, the Argentine Dagger Ponzinibbio. This is going to be a very fun matchup between two very skilled fighters. Ponzinibbio, the only reason he's ranked number 14 is because he had such a long layoff after health complications and all that. Got the big win against Miguel Baeza, a very valiant come from behind win. But either way, man, this is a turning point. But before we talk about this, AJ, I need to talk about some of the context that was leading up to this fight. So Jeff Neal, he found himself in the news wire, basically just like a couple weeks ago. It's the 9th. As of we're recording this right now, on December 2nd, an article came out, and I just wanted to give it a little bit of shine real quick because as someone who wagers on fights, as somebody who breaks down these fights, what happens outside of the cage sometimes is kind of just as important as the performances in the cage. So let's talk about it. UFC welterweight Jeff Neal arrested on a DWI and weapons charges in Texas. Now, this is an article written by ESPN staff writer Mark Raimondi, like I said, on December 2nd. And AJ, Jeff Neal, he's a Texas guy. You out there in Texas, you out there in Austin doing your thing, man. Guns is not an uncommon thing for people to have in the state of Texas. It is the great state of Texas for that reason, because an armed society is a polite society. And for that reason, still, Jeff Neal found himself in a little bit of heat. So I'm going to read this out to you, folks. I'm going to single myself out. 1 second. Okay. So UFC welterweight Jeff Neal was arrested Thanksgiving Day on charges of driving while intoxicated and unlawfully carrying a weapon per a Collin County Sheriff's Office document obtained Thursday by ESPN. Neal was taken into custody early on November 25th and was released after making a $2,000 bond at 8:08 p.m. that night, the document stated. Now, Neal's attorney told ESPN that Neal volunteered for a blood test when he was arrested, and his team believes that those results will prove that Neal was not over the blood alcohol legal limit of 0.08%, and there will not be a case file produced against Neal until those results come back. Barnett said the blood results could take anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months to come back. He said he's not sure what the probable cause was to arrest Neal because the arrest report has not yet been released to him. And this is a quote from Neal's attorney saying, "I think it's somewhat premature to report on this at this point. Doing what I do for a living, there's a lot of occasions where you see an arrest, and then based on the evidence that comes back, there's never even a case file." And when I listened, AJ, to Jeff Neal talk about this in the pre-fight presser, he was just kind of saying, I don't really have anything to comment on this, man. They're kind of making this out to be worse than it is. They're making it seem like I had a fucking Mac 10 sitting in my lap driving drunk all recklessly, when in reality, he said, drinking during his camp is not a normal thing that he does. This is an isolated event. He was with his lady or his woman or whatever the case may be doing this thing. Yes, he had his firearm on him. Things just kind of happened. But they didn't use a breathalyzer on him, so that is why he volunteered for a blood test. And you got to be a confident man to say, yeah, fuck it, test my blood, dude, whatever. Let's do it. Let's rock. So for Jeff Neal, he's saying he's putting it behind him. This shouldn't be too much of a thing. You know what I mean? And the way that I originally read the article, I was like, this is terrible news. Like, why, you know what I mean? Why would you even, I don't know, why would you even bet on this situation? I don't know, you know what I mean? And I do want to update folks, for those who are watching the graphic, who are watching the program, this is not minus 110 apiece odds. This is actually plus 145 for Jeff Neal, minus 175 for Santiago Ponzinibbio. So apologies for not updating that. But the reason why I think partly those odds are as they are is because of that article that came out. People are probably saying, oh, Jeff Neal, you're getting in some trouble, right? Like a couple weeks before your fight. Like, what's going on, bro? Things aren't right in your camp. But then again, the man is ranked higher than Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio has been less active than Jeff Neal, just a little bit. All that aside, AJ, what do you make of that whole entire thing that I just gave for you?
I mean, it's interesting because I mean, as a firearm carrier, if you're drinking, you're drunk. Obviously, don't be driving. Don't do that shit. But as well, you can't have your firearm on you, no matter how it is. Interesting. I think it's a lot less of a situation than the media is leading on to be. I think once your name's in those lights, especially hear your weapons charge, DUI, people think like, damn, you're right. He's driving around with a Mac-10, busting off rounds, driving around drunk down to 35. But I think it's a lot less than that. I think it's just something that's kind of being pushed under the rug. And a lot of the time when you volunteer for something, it's because you're innocent. This is not the heavyweight implications that it has, especially is going for something that could be quite devastating to someone's career. I'm not taking too much weight on this one. I think it's something that's going to be handled out of court, handled through his lawyer. It'll just kind of be brushed off. Everyone's going to forget about this one. We've seen a lot worse happen with these UFC fighters, and thankfully it wasn't something too bad going forward, man. Yeah,
absolutely. And then once again, context matters, man. If you're in California, right, and you're like, there's a cultural difference between Texas and California, and Californians are kind of in a way like scared of guns. Texans embrace gun culture. So it's like, exactly, man. You hear somebody have a gun, you shouldn't immediately think, oh my God, what were they doing? Why do they have a gun? It's like, because they're in Texas and you can. Legally, what is it, constitutional carry in Texas where you can just have a gun? You don't need nothing. You just carry the gun. It is what it is. That's, why, like I said, great state of Texas, because they embrace the freedom over there. But all that aside, man, I don't think that this should have a heavy implication in the context of this matchup. I think this should be a fight where both dudes are going in 100% or as close to 100% as possible, and they're going to bang it out and see who's the better fighter on Saturday night. So let's talk about it, my man. Jeff Neal's coming off of 2 losses, man. One to Neil Magny and one to Wonderboy Thompson. The fight against Neil Magny was a little demoralizing because Neil Magny just touched him up for 3 full rounds. It's kind of annoying when a dude is just popping you in your face, poking that stick in your face all day. But for Santiago Ponzinibbio, though he got knocked out against Li Jingliang 2 fights ago in the first round, kind of a stunner, nobody really saw it coming, he bounced back against Miguel Baez, a valiant effort. I already talked about it, man. Great unanimous decision to win for the Argentine Dagger. Now, when these two match up, both of these dudes like to get the job done the same way. They like to use their hands. Ponzinibbio's a little more well-rounded, but he likes to box. Neal likes to box. And I'm going to say this to open this up, AJ. I think Ponzinibbio is a better striker than Jeff Neal. I think Jeff Neal is a better boxer than Ponzinibbio. And I think that's what's going to make this matchup interesting, is because Ponzinibbio has a 73-inch reach. Neal has a 75-inch reach. So Ponzinibbio is going to have to get in on the inside, close a little bit of distance. But then again, Ponzinibbio is just a little bit taller than Neal. So it's like you taller, shorter reach versus shorter, longer reach. Who's going to be on the outside? Who's going to lead the dance? And the key here, AJ, for me, Jeff Neal's head movement is massively underrated. Dude has slick footwork and head movement. Ponzinibbio's a little more of the stand and trade, absorb damage type. How do you see this fight playing out, man? Who leads the dance? This is also Southpaw versus Orthodox. Neal being the Southpaw, Ponzinibbio being the Orthodox fighter. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, Derek, that's the exact question I had for you too, because that was probably the hardest thing for me to think of.
Yeah,
is because in my mind, Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's going to be on that front foot, leading forward, orthodox style, getting things done, moving forward. But Jeff Neal has this crazy way of not being there with his head moving when the punches start flying. Man, Ponzinibbio though, he has these amazing low kicks that can kind of mitigate that little bit of movement that Jeff Neal has. The problem is once Jeff Neal's kind of put in that corner, he has these crazy power, man. The hands of steel is a very apt nickname for this guy because he can drop you real quick with that left bomb of a left hand, and it just comes out just like a piston, literally no tail on it, fires out real nicely. I do think Ponzinibbio will be leading the dance, at least at the beginning. I just see Jeff Neal, excuse me, I keep messing up. I see Jeff Neal going as more of that counter striker, letting the boxing speak for itself, or he lets Ponzinibbio kind of tire himself out. Do you see it the same way, or are you thinking that Jeff Neal's going to be the one leading the dance going forward on this one, Derek?
It's tough because when you watch Jeff Neal fight, man, what does he do? Like in the Neil Magny fight, he literally just says, like, I'm going to walk you into the corner, and there's nothing you can do about it, and I'm just going to smash your face. But the problem was Neil Magny had so many teep kicks, so many jabs, so many everything coming, constant movement. So for Ponzinibbio, who is very much that pressure fighter, he's the definition of a pressure fighter. It's going to be interesting to see, can he fight off of his back foot as well as he can off the front foot? I say no, and I think Jeff Neal is going to be pushing the pace and the pressure on him. He's a behemoth of a man, and when it comes down to the grappling as well, I think Jeff Neal is a lot stronger than people give him credit for, because when Neil Magny, who's a great wrestler, great grappler in himself, was trying to get Neal down, Neal would just stand up and just, just like Derek Lewis style, just stand up, push him, reverse position, and then be like, all right, we're back on our feet, we're getting it done. So every single time Neil Magny got Jeff Neal down, he was never able to keep him there. I don't see this being any type of grappling matchup, but I'm talking more clinch exchanges and stuff like that. I think Jeff Neal's power is going to be the differential too, because Ponzinibbio, though he has 15 knockouts, like this dude has crazy power in his hands. Jeff Neal is just different, right? Like you said, aptly named nickname, Hands of Steel, for a reason. So when it comes down to it, my man, both of these dudes throw almost at the same clip, about 4.5 significant strikes, 48% for Neal, 40% for Ponzinibbio, 87% takedowns for Neal, 60% takedown defense for Ponzinibbio. Like I said, I see this being a kickboxing match, but when we're talking about notable wins, this is where it comes down to. For Jeff Neal, he really only has 2 of them in his recent fights, man, and that is Bilal Muhammad, a decision win, and Nico Price knocked him out in round 2. For Ponzinibbio, you have Neil Magny, where he knocked him out in the 4th round. You remember that fight? That was crazy. Miguel Baeza, that unanimous decision win, which maybe shouldn't be a notable win, but to me, that stood out. But he also knocked out Gunnar Nelson in the 1st round, man, and that's a legend to do it. So with all of that being said, my man, who do you give an edge to, man? Let's talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, who are you giving the edge to? And let's talk about implications. What does a win mean for either one of these fighters? What do you think?
Well, I like the way you phrase it, because I do think Santiago Ponzinibbio is the better all-around striker. Yeah. He has the leg kicks, he has the movement, he kind of has a little bit different way about going about things. Where Jeff Neal, his hands are solid. His hands, like that boxing is very, very on point, very that's what I'm looking for, like precise. He hits you hard. It's everything you want in a boxer. It's just he doesn't have those kicks, those teep kicks, those calf kicks to keep you going. I'm giving a little bit of an edge to Ponzinibbio as far as in the striking, just because of that, just because of the leg kicks, because he's able to get it done with all the limbs. But as far as a dog in the fight, man, I'm going Jeff Neal. I think Jeff Neal has a little bit more of a mental advantage going forward. And don't get me wrong, Ponzinibbio is an absolute dog as well. We saw in that Baeza fight, the way he was able to turn things around and keep that pressure going the entire time. We're going to have 2 pressure fighters going literally head to head against each other the entire time. Going to make for a very interesting matchup. And as far as you said, over under.
Well, no, before the over and under, just tell me
what does a
win mean for Ponzinibbio? What does a win mean for Jeff Neal? I mean, both of these dudes are in the tail end of the top 15, but a big win, a decisive win, could definitely skyrocket them into that top 10. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a big win, especially a performance bonus win for both of these guys, we're going to be seeing top 10 in their names very, very soon, especially, or if not a top 10 already, a top 10 opponent against them going forward. And it's actually but the same for both, whether it's Ponzinibbio or Jeff Neal. I think both of them have that kind of jump up going forward. It'll be interesting. I think I'm giving a little bit more advantage on this one to Jeff Neal, just because he has a little bit of a ride going for him. Yeah. Ponzinibbio is kind of a little bit on the back foot, but we'll see. What do you think?
Well, it's going to be interesting because, like I said, Neal is coming off of 2 losses, so this is almost a must-win for him. And for Ponzinibbio, he only has 1 loss in his last 5, and he was on a 7-fight win streak before that loss. So for him, I think it's just kind of smooth sailing for Ponzinibbio, so I'm going opposite. I think for Ponzinibbio, a big win, that fast-tracks him real quick back into that top 10. Look, he doesn't deserve number 14. He deserves to be a higher number than that. And for Jeff Neal, I think that kind of like reaffirms, okay, yeah, you're that guy. You know what I mean? You're not this dude who's just on a massive losing streak. You're not that dude who we thought you were. Because, dude, listen, man, before the Wonderboy Thompson fight, people were saying Jeff Neal could fight for a championship. So we'll see what happens. This is going to be a very fun fight. And then now let's talk about winner or loser, over and under. The over and under on this one, my man, is 2.5 rounds, plus 145 for the over, minus 175 for the under. So where are you going, over and under?
I'm going with the over on this one, man. I'm going with the dog. I'm going, and I'm actually going Jeff Neal by decision. I think it's going to be a crazy fight, back and forth, 2 pressure dudes going at it. It's going to be hard to get either one of these out of there with a KO, even though it definitely can happen. But I'm going Jeff Neal by decision. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to have to rock the same way. I'm going Jeff Neal by decision, and I think that he's going to be able to hurt Ponzinibbio. I think both fighters are going to be able to hurt each other. I just don't see a knockout happening because Neal has only been knocked out once in his career, and Ponzinibbio has been knocked out 3 times. but it doesn't have a real record of being knocked out. I mean, he barely has any losses, man. 4 losses in 32 fights, So I just think that the man's chin held up against Baeza, who knows he's known for cracking dudes, man. Like, he sleeps people. So I'm going Jeff Neal, hands of steel, bounce back win, past all the nonsense outside of the cage. I think it'll be a really fun fight. But this is one of those fights where you'd hate to see anybody lose, you know what I mean? And then on top of it, Jeff Neal fighting out of Fortis MMA, Ponzinibbio fighting out of American Top Team. This is a battle of 2 super camps right here. So, all right, my man. Now, let's move on to championship contention. My man, Amanda Nunes, minus 800 favorite in the women's bantamweight division, with the plus 550 comeback for the Venezuelan vixen, number 3 ranked Julianna Peña. Now, AJ, for those who are watching, AJ, just look at how incredible this looks. ESPN updated the joint. We got Amanda Nunes, both belts. Like, listen, man, she's just in a different league right there. Both belts, doing her thing, my man. She's looking to make her 9th career title defense between featherweight and bantamweight in the UFC. Listen, this is one of those things where you said it. You said Julianna Peña might be one of the tougher tests for Amanda Nunes, but the way that I'm looking at it right here, my man, she's fought in her last 5. Okay. Cyborg, Holly Holm, Jermaine Durandamy, Felicia Spencer, Megan Anderson. I think those first 3, Jermaine Durandamy, Holly Holm, Cyborg, way, way, way tougher test than Julianna Peña. This is a different clash of styles for her, but I think it's almost disrespectful, in my opinion, to say that Amanda Nunes has a legitimate chance of, like, oh my God, Julianna Peña might be able to dust her. I think she might be able to grab a submission on her, you know what I mean, if everything plays right. But to dust Amanda Nunes, there's no such thing as that. Come on. Now, let's actually give a little bit of shine, because Julianna Peña, who was 11-4 in her career, 3 knockouts, 4 submissions, 3 decisions, though there is much, and I emphasize much, to be desired in her stand-up, her grappling is almost second to none, man. She's relentless with her takedowns, and when she gets the squeeze on you, man, it's almost game over. She almost put Jermaine Durandamy out with the guillotine, but, AJ, I need to talk about that really fast. So lest we forget, my man. You know what I mean? Jiu-jitsu is a real thing. And Julianna Peña, who's a very skilled jiu-jitsu practitioner, she made a couple rookie mistakes, man. She made 2 rookie mistakes, one in the jiu-jitsu category and one in the wrestling category. And who am I to talk? I am just this dude, a white belt who takes a couple jiu-jitsu classes every week, whatever. I have no dog in the game in this one, but I'm talking about fundamentals. I'm talking about theory here. So the first one was that in the Jermaine Durandamy fight, Julianna Peña, if not saved by the clock, I think there was like 17 seconds left, she would have gotten put to sleep or very close to put to sleep with the Von Flue choke. And the Von Flue choke comes, folks, when you're grabbing a guillotine on somebody passes your guard so they get to kind of a side control position. You don't have the guillotine anymore, but your arm is stuck. They put their arm on your carotid artery, and you go to sleep. You literally go to sleep. It'll take you maybe 4 or 5 seconds if you have a good Von Flue in. You will go to sleep. OSP, he does it all the time. That's why it's now the OSP choke. Now, AJ, the second mistake is something that you could probably understand, because this is coming from a wrestling technique. When you shoot for a double leg, you shoot for a single or whatever, or it's mainly the double, because if you're shooting on the double, you're going to shoot on the same side that you're kind of going towards, and she left her neck wide open, got guillotined by Jermaine Durandamy, and got put to sleep. She got choked to sleep. Now, I'm not saying that this is an uncommon thing. This is a very common thing, because this is, you got to risk it to get the biscuit. She went for the takedown. She just got caught. It doesn't mean she's bad. Like I said, she's literally almost second to none in terms of her grappling. Amazing grappling. But with all of that being said, there are holes even in those kind of grappling techniques that Julianna Peña is trying to attempt. And lest we forget, Amanda Nunes is a Brazilian black belt jiu-jitsu, black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, excuse me. So it's like, I just think people are looking at Nunes because of what she's done recently and saying, oh, she's just a striker. She only knows how to knock people out. Dude, her grappling is legit. And you look at what she did against Sarah McMahon, a silver medalist Olympian wrestler. She was able to stuff those takedowns, man. She was able to maneuver on her. She was able to do some things to Sarah McMahon. So rant aside, my man, I had to, stand up for the Lioness. People need to put respect on the GOAT's name right there. Amanda Nunes, I don't think this is going to be a crazy, crazy difficult task on her hand. It will be tough, though. Don't get me wrong. So now let's talk about it, my man. What does Julianna Peña have in her game that you think could really pose a threat to Amanda Nunes here?
Well, I got to clarify, Derick. I don't think by any means is Amanda Nunes going to get dusted over here. I just think that Julianna Peña has one of the better chances we've seen as of late, because a lot of those people you mentioned, Chris Cyborg, Holly Holm, Jermaine Durandamy, those are somewhat of an older generation of fighters that we've seen. No, not to throw any shade, not to not to disrespect some of the greats. Holly Holm going into the Boxing Hall of Fame, very much a great. Those fighters, those level of fighters are something completely different. I'm just saying, as of late in the women's bantamweight division, we're not really seeing the GOAT get tested. We're not seeing Amanda Nunes get tested, except now Julianna Peña has that one strategy, that one style that we haven't seen Amanda Nunes as of late do. We know. I mean, like you said, Brand, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can't have any holes going in your game when you're fighting Nunes, man. She's literally going to see those holes and put her fist right through it or choke you out using one of those holes like you talked about before. I just think Julianna Peña, she's slick submissions, but what I like about her, the fact that she's relentless in the takedown. She's going to keep going. She's going to stay there until she gets choked out, which could probably happen. Especially with Amanda Nunes being as good as she is. But the fact that Julianna Peña is continuously going for it, continuously working, never giving up on herself, that's what I think is going to make this the hardest fight for Amanda Nunes, at least as of late. Not entirely, not ever, but at least in her last two fights.
Yeah. I think on paper, and I thank you for clarifying, you know what I'm saying? But I think on paper, yes, I agree. Julianna Peña had a very, very tough task. But I just want to mention one more time that Sarah McMahon fight, because Julianna Peña's last fight was against Sarah McMahon. She submitted her in the third round. But I think Nunez submitted McMahon as well, and in much more impressive fashion. It was in one round, rear naked choke, took her back, game over. So it's like, if she's able to outdo you in your own game, I mean, come on, what are we talking about here? So I don't want to be too heavy, like, oh my God, Amanda Nunes did that and the other. But it's like the track record is proven, and I think she's reached a point in her career, AJ, where truly and honestly, you can kind of go the Floyd Mayweather approach, where you say you can't bet against them until they lose. You feel me? Like, listen, man, what's her win streak right now? 12 fights? She's on a 12-fight win streak that nobody's talking about, right? We talk about her double championship. We talk about her knocking people out. But we don't talk about her being, like, damn near next to, like, Usman and only just a couple other names with that big, long win streak. Now, let's give some credit, though, to the Venezuelan Vixen, man. Her wins in her last 5 have come against Sarah McMahon, Nico Montano, and Kat Zingano. So the Montano fight, we throw that out. That is a good win, but, I mean, that's not on the level of Nunez. Kat Zingano, it's a good win. But when your losses are to Durandamy and Shevchenko, you know what I mean? Those. I mean, it's just tough because Nunez has wins over both of those fights, or both of those fighters, and she has 2 wins over Shevchenko. So it's like, yes, you cannot knock Julianna Peña for losing to GDR and Shevchenko. Absolutely, those are the best to do it. But when you're fighting the best, who can beat those best? I mean, come on. So listen, this is basically a circle jerk at this point, man. So I just want to get the pick, get the over and under. Clearly, I'm going for Nunez. I do think this is going to be a fun matchup. But I just want to make one last point, man. The thing that really makes me so much of in the corner of Amanda Nunes is Peña, man. She has these wild entries on the feet that don't look very technical. And as a professional fighter, you know what I mean? Sure, I'm sure she does have good stand-up. She was able to actually land a couple times on Jermaine Durandamy, just blitzing forward, putting that pressure on her, just throwing crazy strikes at her. But I think partially it's because she can take the Damian Maia approach, right? Where you can just blitz forward, because what are you going to do, take me down? That's fine. That's where I want to take the fight anyways, With that wild entry and those unorthodox ground and pound where she'll just smack you, hammer fist you in your stomach, just random shots. With that, do you think any of that poses a threat to Nunez, or Nunez with her very long, rangy style is going to be able to land that right hand? Because that's what she does to everybody. She lands the right hand, and when you get hit by that, a lot of people, they can't do anything. McMahon literally just got touched by it. Oof, game over. All right, I'm done. I don't want no more. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the power of Nunez, the style she has, it's going to be a hard uphill battle for Julianna Peña going forward. We even saw in the Megan Anderson fight, Megan got touched once and went, oh, shit, I'm in here now. Oh, no. Yeah, I think it's going to be the exact same thing. And I'm just trying to give a little bit more credit to Julianna Peña, because you got to have a lot of credit to go into the fight with Amanda Nunes. But personally, man, I'm going Nunez, TKO, round 2. I don't think I imagine the under over. What is it?
1.5 rounds.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I'm still taking the under. I think it's gonna happen in that early part of round 2. If she makes it out of round 1, Julianna Peña, I'd be pretty surprised. I'd be pretty impressed. That's a win. It's rough when you get a win on the GOAT is making it out of round 1. it's just Amanda Nunes is on a whole nother level, man.
Yeah, I agree. And just before I give my pick, man, once again, doubling down, Julianna Peña is a very, very legitimate fighter. She's number 3 in her division for a reason. But it's just tough because Shevchenko at 125 and Nunez at 135, those are the top of the heap right there, my man, you know? So it's like it's tough to really be that 1A. You could be 1B, 1C. But being 1A, it's tough, man. So no disrespect to her whatsoever. It's just like it's like the same thing when people were fighting Anderson Silva in his prime. It's like, it's no disrespect to them, but you're just fighting a dude who's like way too good. And this is the case with Amanda Nunes. So I'm going to Amanda Nunes. I'm going to TKO victory for Nunes as well, but I think it's going to be a little later in the fight. I think Peña is going to be able to hold her own legitimately. So I'm going to go maybe like a round 3 or round 4. I'll say round 3, you know what I mean? Keep it within 3. But that means I'm going over on 1.5 rounds, folks. So got that jotted down. All that. I think an and still on this one. Minus 800 for a reason. Listen, if you're in the camp of Peña and, you know, she's saying plus 550, you guys are crazy not to bet on me. This is going to be all that. She's going to submit Nunez. Nunez has been submitted once in her 25 fight career. You know what I mean? She's been knocked out more than she's been submitted. So I can't even tell you who submitted her, to be honest with you. But yeah, man. Good fight, you know, good matchup on her hands, I suppose. You know what I mean? At this point, Nunez fought everybody, so there's nobody left. So move on to the main event, my man, right here. Now, this is something that's interesting. We could really have a conversation about this one because we got Bronx, man, the champion, unified, official, lightweight champion, who opens up as a plus 135 underdog in his first title defense against the Diamond, number 1 ranked Dustin Poirier, a.k.a. the People's Champ. Folks, so if you were listening to the intro, that's why I said you got the People's Champ versus the actual crowned unified champion, because for Poirier to open up as a minus 160 favorite is a little telling. Oliveira has way better grappling than Poirier. Their striking could be somewhat equal if you really think about it. Poirier has the big bombs, great shoulder rolls, but Oliveira is so technical, so many knockouts. I mean, let's look at the record. 31-18 for Bronx, 9 knockouts, 19 submissions. Poirier, 28-6, 14 knockouts, 7 submissions. I mean, Oliveira, I think that we have a very definitive advantage on the ground. I think it's a little more closer on the feet. And when we're talking about ground and pound and top control, I think Poirier has the edge there. So tell me what you think of the odds first, man. Do you think that Poirier should be a favorite in this fight?
It's hard to say because I honestly feel like this one, I battled this literally. I had my picks ready midday yesterday, but I spent so long, literally probably like 5 hours just battling back and forth. Like, who has the advantage? Because I agree with you. In the striking, pretty close. Charles Oliveira, very long, very lanky. He can hit you from ranges you're not seeing coming. Dustin might have the power advantage. We'll see. A little time to tell on that one because Charles Oliveira is very powerful himself. Dustin Poirier, the ground and pound, the top control goes to him. The bottom game, the submissions attempts, Charles Oliveira, he's always active. This one is really a toss-up for me. Maybe it's because the way that the Diamond has just been doing it for so long and everyone agrees that he should have been fighting for the championship in the last fight, not taking the money fight, that maybe that's why he's the favorite. But honestly, man, don't sleep on Charles Oliveira. That's a dog. And it's crazy to say that there's a dog as a champion. Like, this is crazy, man. I would have had it a little bit closer, maybe even Charlie Olives as the actual favorite going forward, especially because the way he was able to put out Michael Chandler in his last fight, basically out of nowhere in round 1, hit him hard, hit him fast, and then went in for the kill. We didn't really see that much happening, or I don't know if I can see that happening to Dustin Poirier, nor do I see Dustin Poirier doing that to Charles Oliveira going forward. I think we're in for a long fight. What about you?
I think so as well, my man. Unless, I mean, believe it or not, the over and under on this 5-round championship fight is 1.5 rounds. So clearly the odds makers think it's going to end early, but I don't necessarily see it that way just because I think Poirier, we've seen him be able to deal with grappling, right, at very high levels. Look at it. For Khabib, it took Khabib 3 rounds to finally submit Dustin Poirier. And, like, you know, finally submit, right? I mean, listen, 3 rounds, that's not the longest amount of time. But still, for Khabib, the dude who's just starching everybody, right? That's pretty impressive, right? Now, for Oliveira, seeing the battle of adversity that he took against Michael Chandler, where a lot of people thought Michael Chandler, they were about to say and knew, he just put Oliveira out, you know, came back second round and just came back unfazed, technical. Like first round didn't even happen. And that's what you got to have, a short memory. Come in there. Every round is a new round. Every single round is 0-0. I got to get the win on this one. So the interesting thing to me on this one, my man, is that I've been envisioning the same way you have. How does the ground game work out? Because you know it's eventually going to get there, but what happens? Is Oliveira just going to tie Poirier up like a pretzel, or where does the fight need to take place for that to happen? Because I think if Oliveira can get Poirier down in the middle of the cage, right, in the middle of the octagon, and work his jiu-jitsu from there, he'll have much more success than if he tries to do it against the fence. Because if Poirier gets you against the cage, we've seen it time and time again, you're in trouble. You're in big, big trouble. And AJ, you know what reminds me of that situation is when Charles Oliveira fought Paul Felder a couple of years back. And Paul Felder smashed elbows into Oliveira's face against the cage. And, I mean, listen, more or less broke the man. You know what I'm saying? Like, he got the win. I'm not sure if that was the same fight. There was one of these fights where Oliveira lost, and it was due to a throat contusion. I don't remember if that was the Felder fight. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where Oliveira literally, like, he got hit in the throat or something. He basically had to quit. He was like, but that's a serious fucking injury. That's not, you know what I'm saying? Your esophagus gets destroyed or whatever. You're like, yo, I would like to breathe. That would be nice. But that's the narrative, AJ. So talk to me about the narrative and your thoughts on it. The narrative going into this is that Charles Oliveira is never going to be a true champion because he has too much of a propensity to quit when the going gets tough. That he is a man who can be broken easily. He's been broken in the past, and that he can be broken again. I don't necessarily agree with that assessment, but I'm interested in your take on that narrative.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with it. I mean, I'm all about second chances, third chances, fourth chances. If you can turn yourself around, we saw in the Michael Chandler fight where if he was willing to give up and he wanted to quit on himself, he easily could have. Like Michael Chandler had him basically dead to rights. And then, like you said it best, Derick, Charles Oliveira came out literally like nothing happened. Literally came out 0-0. We're here for the game plan. We're going to keep it going and put on a star-studded performance. Now, speaking to Charles Oliveira's past, it's a little bit cloudier. It's a little bit muggier. He was kind of trying to find himself. He was growing, man. This dude's only 32 years old in the prime of his life right now. You know, the fact that, yeah, he might have quit on himself back in the past, we all have. We've all done that. Charles Oliveira is no different. He's still a man amongst men over here, and probably has one of his toughest challenges going forward as somebody who has probably never, ever quit on themselves. You know, Dustin Poirier, with his foundation and with the way he lives his life, this dude has a very strong mental game going forward. And it could be one of the biggest X factors we see going into this one is how each other talks to themselves in their private time. You know, when the chips get down, how do you speak to yourself? Are you one of those ones that's going to say, you know, encouraging things, going to keep you going, going to keep you motivated? Or are you one of the ones that kind of starts doubting yourself, doubting, you know, your skills and whatnot? It's, I can see where people think that Charles Oliveira has the propensity for that negative talk, but as of late and as of the way he's feeling after that Michael Chandler fight and even the Tony Ferguson, the Kevin Lee, all these fights going forward, I don't see him quitting on himself like he used to. He definitely has in the past, and we've seen it come forward and kind of that speaking to that narrative. I just don't see it playing out that way anymore, man. I think with the wins he's had and the flow he's going on and the momentum he's been tracking for, I don't see Charlie Oliveira being able to think any less of himself going forward anymore, man. What about you, Derick?
I pretty much agree with your assessment, my man. There's something that we noted when he first won the championship is this is a man coming out of the favelas of Brazil. This is a dude, and I was just talking with my jiu-jitsu professor, Romulo Caedo, man, and this is another Brazilian himself, and he was saying that Charles Oliveira, when he won the championship, he went back to Brazil, got a truckload of food, and went door to door and started just handing out food to people. Like, he's a man of the people, truly. The people celebrate Oliveira out there in Brazil. So this is a man who brought tremendous pride to his country. I have a hard time thinking that he's just going to be like, oh, I'll just let this championship go. No big deal. You know what I mean? You're the man of the people now. Now you got to make sure that you defend this belt and you are truly that person. You have a lot of questions to answer. You are a man truly. People talk about being from the hood. This man's from the hood, you know what I'm saying, of Brazil. That's a different level of hood. That ain't American hood right there. That's real hood. So I think the man being able to get it done out of shoot the box, Diego Lima, it's even more impressive and even more telling, man. You know, it's a great culture out there, and fighters are bred and born right there in Brazil. So I think Charles Oliveira still has a very good shot at winning this fight, but I think the other technical aspect that is going to make this interesting is this is orthodox versus southpaw. Poirier being the southpaw, Oliveira being the orthodox fighter, my man. So with the orthodox fighter having the longer reach, it's going to be interesting because Poirier is going to have to get on the inside. I don't know how much he's going to work that liver kick too much, but when it comes down to it, even in the striking, would you agree that Oliveira is a little more multidimensional than Poirier? Poirier gets a lot of his work done with the boxing, a lot of it, good calf kick, all that good stuff. But Oliveira has great front kicks that'll touch your jaw, teeps to the body, calf kicks, crazy strikes, elbows, the whole entire nine. So with Poirier's more fundamental, I would say like that. And fundamental is never a bad thing, right? A basic fundamental approach against the advanced, flashy style of Oliveira. Who do you think could be more effective over the course of 5 rounds? Let's say that this was just a purely striking match and grappling didn't exist. Who do you think would be the more effective striker over 5 rounds between these two?
See, I'm going to have to lead with the fundamentals on this one, man. I think the more basic you can get, and basic is, again, not a bad word. Fundamentals are not a bad word. If you're staying consistent with it and like continually hitting that exact mark back and forth, and there's nothing you can do to stop it, and the guy doesn't know the fundamentals to get past that one move. Yeah. It's hard, man. And then it's nice. What's nice about that is with those fundamentals, you're able to keep composed. You're able to keep the gas tank in line. Whereas if you're throwing these flashy roundhouse kicks to the face, using all those body, you really start to drain yourself. And nothing worse than when you're throwing one of those crazy kicks up, the guy sees it coming, he just pulls up just out of the way, just enough, just to let it slide right by his nose. You don't even think, they're like, damn, all right. Or maybe you catch him, but it wasn't the hardest punch because it's one of those ones that's winging and he saw it coming, he's able to brace for it. And then your kind of mentality gets a little demoralized on that aspect. I'm going fundamentals on that one. What about you?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I just think it's going to be more energy conservation for Dustin Poirier. I think we'd be able to see him dig deep throughout 5 rounds, multiple times, or even 3 rounds where he's just going and it's the deep waters, the bloody deep waters, shout out, and he's just over there getting it, not getting tired. I do think that Dustin Poirier, man, if the fight favors Poirier if it goes longer. I think it favors Oliveira if it goes shorter. And with that being said, my man, the final question we have to answer here, and still or and new come Saturday night?
Ooh, man, I'm going and new. I'm going with the people's champ, my man. And I'm actually taking this one at distance. I think Dustin Poirier is going to get it done at a decision. I think it's going to be a very long fight, and I agree with you. If this one goes shorter, it's leaning a little bit more towards Oliveira, but I'm going with the Diamond, man. I've been rocking with Diamond basically since day one. Maybe not his first fight, but probably his second and his third since. I've been rocking with Diamond for a long time. I'm sticking with it. Dustin Poirier by decision. What about you, Derick?
So I'm going to give you my pick, but I'm going to give you a little story before I do that, man. And this is just a story of the reckoning of Dustin the Diamond Poirier, the Louisiana's finest. So when he fought Max Holloway, I believe I picked for Holloway. And Poirier showed the people, why the fuck do you think this little dude could come up to my weight class and beat me in a striking match? Yeah, all right. Poirier got the job done. He fights Khabib. Obviously, I pick Khabib. That's just a different story. He loses. Okay, I'm right on that one, but it's not a hard pick. He fights Dan Hooker next. No pick on that one. I let it be. It was what it was. He got the big win over Hooker. That was a very telling win. That was a gutsy 5-round war right there. He fights McGregor for the second time. I picked Poirier. You picked McGregor on that fight. I was like, okay, the Diamond. He got it done. I told you, right? They rematch. I say, I don't know. I think McGregor got this one. You pick Poirier. Poirier wins. Suffice it to say, I've been wrong about Dustin Poirier many times in picking against him. And I think that when the moment shines the brightest, when all the chips are on the table, when this is 25 minutes for the rest of your life, I think that's when Dustin Poirier shines. And for that reason, I am picking Dustin Poirier, unanimous decision. I'm taking the over, way on the over. This is 1.5 rounds for the over, so super over. Decision win by Poirier, gutsy and new. I think this is finally going to be the absolute intertwinement of all of the money fights, the actual championship. One of the biggest underdogs to do it in terms of a man who people would think would be a champion one day. He's going to get up there with the Michael Bispings of the world. He's going to get up there with the Michael Moores of the world. You feel me? Over there beating Evander Holyfield or Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson. I think this is going to be one of those situations. Oliveira is not Mike Tyson, but I'm talking about the things he had to overcome in his career to get to the title. Come on, what are we talking about? So I'm going the Diamond. You already know what time it is. And new, both of us on this one, my man. So we're picking and still for Nunez and new for the lightweight championship. Should be a fun one, man. Should be a fun one. And this is a solid card to end the year right. Obviously, we have one more fight, but this is the last pay-per-view of the year. So AJ, man, before we hit the fight of the night, I'll move on over to it. Before we hit it, I got to ask you, my man, is this up there to be one of the best pay-per-views on paper of the entire year?
Oh, on paper, man, 100%. That's honestly why I thought this was the end. Like, I thought this was the end of the year card, man.
Yeah.
This one is insane. Like, the amount of people they have stacked up and the styles of those fights going forward, it's going to be a very interesting fight card.
Absolutely. And just looking at it one more time, folks, just a recap on this. This is December 11th. The fight is taking place. Early prelims start at 2:30 Pacific time. Prelims at 5 o'clock Pacific, and then main card at 7 o'clock. So it's going to be a late one for us, West Coasters over here, or people, in this kind of West Coast vicinity. In terms of the matchups, though, my man, I do think it's interesting because you get a good variety of everything. We got a women's strawweight bout, a women's flyweight bout, men's flyweight, a featherweight, a bantamweight, a middleweight. We actually got 2 middleweights, one welterweight, a couple bantamweights, man. We're seeing everything. We're tapping it off with the lightweight. I mean, this is one of the best things, too, because sometimes they stack them up, and it'll be 5 bantamweight fights, or it'll be 7 middleweight fights. We have a good mixture of everything, variety for anybody who wants to come watch. But with that being said, and all that variety, we need to pick a fight of the night. So who do you have for fight of the night for UFC 269, my man?
Man, there's so many hard options. I've been battling between 2, but either way, I'm sticking with the prelims, and I'm going Augusto Sakai versus Tai Tuivasa. This one might end early. It might not. Either way, I think hands are going to be flying. Blood's going to be spilling. There's going to be some crazy things. Hopefully we see a shoey at the end, but even not, man. Augusto Sakai might come back. We'll see. I'm going Augusto Sakai versus Tai Tuivasa for my fight of the night. What about you, Derick?
So you stole my fight of the night, but it's okay because it's that much of a banger. So I'm going to move on. I had a backup. I always do. And it's going to be a main card fight, man. I think Kai Kara-France versus Cody Garbrandt got fight of the night written all over it, my man. 2 flyweights. It's going to be heavy leather, even though they're going to be 125ers, and they're going to be swinging fast, my man. So those are always some of the best. The lighter weight classes that are a little more technical, but these boys pack a pop in their shots for 125. So that's why I think we got fight of the night over here. Don't discount the flyweights, man. I think we learned that with Devison Figueiredo and his resurgence in the division, even though the man probably should move up to 135. But either way, that's neither here nor there. Those are our fight of the night picks right there, folks. So listen, man, it's a pleasure as always. Listen, this is episode 101. So in my book, this is right back to episode number 1. We got another 100 to go. If not 500, 600, 1,000, it doesn't matter. We rocking. We know we're always getting the film study going. And this is big implications, my man. Listen, we only got this event and then the next event, and then we get crowned head-to-head championship over there, man. A lot of work to do. I don't know the math, how that's looking out, but either way, my man, we play every single week as if we're right there, dog in the fight. It does not matter. You come to show up, you come to play. Pride on the line. Even if the money ain't out there and if the words ain't out there, we fight for pride over here, man, and we always love to be right on this show, my man. And I think it shows, right? Because both of us are over 50%. We basically, so AJ, man, you had a little skid earlier in the year, but we've basically been over 50% the entire year, which is a telling thing to say, man. There's a lot of fights to predict. Go to one of your favorite sportscasters or one of your favorite podcasts that talk about MMA and see what their picks are looking like. I bet you it's dog shit compared to ours. So I'm just going to put that out there. I don't like to talk too much shit, but I'm stalking my shit. You know what time it is. AJ, my man. Listen, this has been a pleasure and honor. You got any last words for the people before we get out of here?
Woo, that's it, man. If you made it this part of the show, thank you for tuning into the best MMA breakdown show out there.
That's
Keep hitting that subscribe button. Let us know in the comments. And like Derick said before, man, we'll hit you back. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know your picks as well. Who's your sleeper? And also let us know how much money you win off of our picks going forward.
That's right.
'Cause we know they're getting them dubs out there. Woo!
I think I'm going to need 15% on that. No, I'm just joking, folks. Take your earnings. Take your winnings. You know what I'm saying? I'm wagering too. But all right, folks, that is it. Episode 101. We'll be back Mondays and Fridays, 8 a.m. As always, you already know what time it is. But until next time, folks, peace.